Hey, welcome to my video. This is going to be a response to the Retro Gamers vlog. I was watching some YouTube videos, coming across some new YouTubers, and I noticed that he had some really cool videos. Check them out. He seems like a great YouTuber, and I noticed they had a contest, so I decided to make my first video response. And so here it is. I thought it was a really interesting question. It intrigued me. There were some questions that I want to answer anyway, so I decided why not make this video response and maybe try my luck for the giveaway. So the questions that were asked were, the first one was, what is your most rarest game in your collection? And the second question was, what is your most favorite game in your collection? Both questions are really, really hard for me to answer. Like, it's kind of, there's a few debates, like it's hard just to narrow it down to one. So for the most rarest game in my collection, I'm gonna narrow it down to 3, but I'll kind of explain why. So the first game I'm gonna mention is the first game that the first out of the 3 that I got. So I got this game first. I got it in a lot, and I paid $1 for this game. It was when I started collecting, and I got my second NES lot, and I ended up getting this rare NES game, Snow Brothers. The condition's really awkward on this game. You can see it bubbling and stuff, but it's still definitely one of my more rare titles. It's definitely, probably, my rarest NES game. The only other game that I could say that has potentially any rarity other than that, well, true established rarity, could potentially be maybe Bucky O'Hare. I kind of heard higher prices tossed around there, and Dusty Diamond's All-Star Softball. It's just kind of cool. But definitely Snow Brothers. This is actually one of my favorite games. It's not my favorite game, but it is pretty fun, I will admit. For a rare game, I'm not really sure why it's so rare. It's kind of underrated, but this is my gem of my NES collection, and hopefully someday I'll have more. The next game I picked up was also $1. That is one of my rarest games. I went to a yard sale, and they had a stack of these games, and I asked how much, and it came out to $1 a game. So the game that I ended up getting was Tomba 2. And of course, it's a PlayStation title. It's one of the more rare titles on the PlayStation. I heard Tomba's potentially worth more, but I got this. It was complete. It was approximately $1 for it, so the disc is mint. When I got this game, I was pretty ecstatic. I haven't really played it enough to say if I even enjoy it, but it's most definitely one of my more rare titles that I have. I would say that I put Snow Brothers ahead of this by far. So I would have to say, in my collection right now, my rarest game would be Snow Brothers. Would mean the most to me. Now this third game that I'm talking about that is rare, it's not completely mine, because my friend and I went in on a lot together. Now potentially this could end up in my possession, it could also end up in his possession, so it could also be sold to anyone watching this video. So if you are in the market for rare games, potentially you can send me a message and you might have an interest in this game. But the game is Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut for the Nintendo 64. Now this title is, I know there's another Clay Fighter game for the Nintendo 64 that was like a wide release game. I want to say it could have been Clay Fighter 63, or 60, yeah, 63 and a, 64 and a third, I think, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I doubt that's even right. It could potentially be, but whatever. I don't know everything. That game there is kind of run-of-the-mill. Probably you could get about $10 for it. But the difference in that cart and this cart, notably the label and the PCB is kind of different. It is called Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut. Now, this game is a Blockbuster exclusive, or was a Blockbuster exclusive back in the day. And they had a few extra characters in the other Clay Fighter game, and I guess pretty much other than that, it plays about the same as the other common clay fighter game. So this game I would say is rarer than Snow Brothers. Somebody might argue me on that, but where it's a Blockbuster exclusive, I would have to say this is probably one of the rare games. Probably the rarest that I've came across by far. So I wanted to mention that, and I'm sure somebody's going to ask me how much I paid for it. And a lot with like Mario Kart 64, there was I think 6 games, but the other honorable mention title would be StarCraft 64. That's also for sale, and so is the Mario 64, or Mario Kart 64. So if anybody's interested in those games, you can let me know as well, maybe do a trade or something. Now, back to the question. Those are my rarest games, kind of long stories with those. I'm sure I probably have some other games that could compete with some rare titles, but nothing to that standard. Those are probably my rarest games. Like Clay Fighter is probably notably the rarest game on Nintendo 64, arguably. But on to the next question. Well, I'll finalize that question. The rarest game that in my possession, in my collection, for me, would be Snow Brothers. So, it was probably one of the first games that I got. It was one of the first games that I got, and it means the most to me. So everyone out there starting collecting, you know, it could be just the first lot that you buy that you strike gold. But just always remember that. On to my favorite game. Now this game I've had on 2 platforms, so it's kinda hard to say for which system it's my most favorite, but I'm gonna have to pick this game here, Bubsy on the Sega Genesis. Now I'm sure a lot of people aren't gonna understand even 2 clues why I would say this is my favorite game, but there's good reason for this game being my favorite. Back in the day, I used to play this game endlessly. Instead of my parents going out and getting me a Dreamcast, that was the modern system, the current generation when I was younger, they decided to get me the older system from my uncle, which was the Sega Genesis. And this game, I believe, came with it. I don't regret playing this. I mean, I spent hours and hours and hours on end playing this. This is probably the only game I was good at when I was younger, so it holds a special place in my heart. Not to mention, I enjoyed playing it with my father, which now has Alzheimer's, so it means more to me, you know. When people aren't in your life, you know, things kind of add a little more nostalgic factor to it, so there's a lot to this game. So, without a doubt, without question, this original copy of Bubsy, I would never get rid of it. It's nostalgic to me beyond belief, and definitely my favorite game. Now, in addition to that, I mentioned that it's on 2 platforms. I did pick up Bubsy on the Super Nintendo. I will say that, I mean, there's nothing different really that I could tell other than the sound's a lot better, the audio's a lot better, and that's about it. So I will admit that Bubsy on the Super Nintendo is maybe a little more enjoyable, but I still would have to appreciate my favorite game specific, narrowing it down to what console, be the Genesis, despite its music, but just a nostalgic factor for me. So there you go. My rarest game was Snow Brothers, and my favorite game was Bubsy. Probably not what a lot of people would expect, but I have around 700 games, and out of those games, I mean, Bubsy was my favorite game. It's kind of odd to believe. But that's going to wrap it up for my video response. Thank you for watching it, and I look forward to having some entries in that contest. And all the best of luck to them. Thank you.